Serious. We
Hi.
should count how many people there are. Okay, we will count 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 27, 28, 29.
All right.
And then everybody on the screen.
Yes, hello, welcome to OASIS talk. I am Hanne Grasmo, I am a doctoral researcher here, and I'm also, can I stand there? And I'm still Hanne Grasmo, and I'm a PhD researcher here, and I'm also running the Play Lab project course in game journalism. And it was originally we that invited Katriina Heljakka, who is coming here to talk about analog toys in the post-digital world. And one of the reasons, there's many reasons. We write toy reviews also, game reviews mostly. But I want to have Katia here because we met in Leiden this summer because we are writing each our chapters in the book Play Politics, and we really get to talk a lot about toys. She is, the people who know her, it's many who know her as a toy and play researcher, also playful education researcher. But now I have went into what I told you, the rabbit hole of Katriina Heljakka, and you should go to her page because it's so many things she has done. She's also an artist, have several exhibitions. And she has also written about digital culture and like analog and digital culture. So I think she will present herself a little bit more during there, but I have my toy, so I feel safe. So give a hand to Katriina Heljakka.
Thank you. So usually when I get given the microphone, something magic happens, and now it's a box. I don't need it. And I don't even need this as an excuse that I don't have many toys with me today, because I have some, as always. So I'll just put this on the table and say, wow, thank you so much all for coming. You did the head count, 29. Yeah. We're 29 people here today. That's amazing. Usually at conferences, you should be happy if you get a handful to attend. So this is quite a privilege to be talking here at OASIS today. It's not my first time at the OASIS, hopefully not my last either. Thank you, Hanne, for inviting me. And I promise to talk a little bit about toys and values, and also a bit about post-digital play and the post-digital world and toys' position in that world. So this is what I promised to do. Let's see where this goes from here. I'm a very big of a fan of Brian Sutton Smith, and you will see quotes throughout the presentation here. And I think this is one of the latest ones I've come across, and Brian writes that already in the 80s, mind you, not now, it's been a long time, he passed away already, but it is in my view that we are so completely surrounded by, even immersed in play, that we cannot at present know its full involvement in our lives. And many of you probably know this character, and there's a reason why I chose this as my opening slide in the presentation. Windows 95 man, gonna present Finland in the Eurovision contest, I learned. And if I remember correctly, the title of his song was No Rules, am I right? Well, some years ago, precisely in this space and this place, we had our There Are No Rules pink sandbox full of dice presented. And it's a participatory art installation. And
it goes automatically now. That is
okay. No worries. We'll stay here a bit more. So I was just fascinated that we could do some research here, because we allowed people to interact with this pink sandbox full of dice. And I thought that there would be no rules in how people engage with this installation. but we had this film camera that still exists here. I believe it's that one that filmed students interacting with this sandbox for 3 months. And that produced a very nice paper on all kinds of amazing things people did in the sandbox. So the thing is here that even though you would have a completely open-ended sandbox, it still implies some kind of social engagement due to its materiality. In this case, these colored dyes. So people did pixel art here. Did any one of you participate in this? Yes, Kati is there. Great. And people used a massive amount of hours and time to create the most amazing works. So there definitely emerged some kind of rules because play is social interaction, even with these open-ended sandbox kind of things. This is what I wanted to share. It went so well with the Windows man. Okay, another very recent case. Anyone heard of this scandal in Finnish design work during the past week? Some new cups were introduced, and I found it very funny that this series is called Play. And play is about mimicry. Play is about replaying things. People, as we are human beings, tend to mimic what we see around us, and this has very much to do with the post-digital era as well, because we leave our marks in the digital spaces and we mimic what other people have played with before. So this was just a fun thing and a not so fun thing in Finnish design, because it has provoked a lot of discussions. Originally, these kind of designs came from a person who designed the cups in a similar way, but now Iittala, which has also done this new kind of branding, refreshed its visual branding, have started to produce these kind of cups. But let's see what comes of that. Anyhow, I think they're playful and they're fun, but this is what design also is. Sometimes you mimic other people's work where you should not use the excuse of play. Okay, since Hanna invited me to talk for a bunch of journalism, game journalism students, I thought that I need to bring some examples from recent articles, and in some cases, some of the news articles that have me in them and interviewed me, and this was a recent case, and this is also a funny thing. I just wanted to bring this to your attention, that sometimes even in journalism, you cannot be sure that the journalists or the news media gets everything right. So what they are writing, this came out last week, it was a large piece in the physical printed paper, and Friday when I Googled if this has come out, I found this text there. So a Turku-based toy and play researcher tells how joy and whimsy can be brought into the space of home. And what is not all right in this is, of course, that I'm not Turku-based, but no one checked that because I'm from the University of Turku. People assume that I'm Turku-based, but this is a lesson for all you aspiring game journalists. Do your fact checking, because I'm not from Turku. I'm from Pori, and this is my play studio there, from where I usually work. And as you can see, there's a lot of color and whimsy in it. So with these introductory slides, I wanted to bring you to today's topic, the value of toys in a post-digital world. These are some of my toys, and they are many. And as you can see, many of them are blue because that's my preference in terms of collecting toys. They go nicely together when they're all of the same color. And you also notice that all of them are character toys. So that's my area of expertise: dolls, action figures, and soft toys. All kinds of toys with a face. So that's where I come from toy and play research, like Hanna said. Another quote from Brian Sutton Smith: we study play because life is crap. Life is crap and it's full of pain and suffering, and the only thing that makes it worth living, the only thing that makes it possible to get up in the morning and go on living is play, art and play. I love this. this This is from a website actually written by Ernst Lurker, and sadly the website doesn't exist anymore, but I'm sure that Brian Sutton-Smith has said that, and we can do some digging together, Leland. But anyhow, yet another quote. Toys defy the regularities of customary things or customary people. This is one of my recent favorites. So as you can see, a lot of Brian Sutton-Smith here. But again, going to what post-digitality means and how that has been defined. Prior to this presentation, I go back to Berry and Schlesser's definition, and also to these other people who have defined post-digital play in the following way. In a post-digital environment, play multiplies. I'm so sorry about this. Yes, you will learn, but not yet. Yes. In a post-digital environment, play multiplies across digital infrastructures and environments. And the post-digital is represented by and indicative of a moment when the computational has become hegemonic. And why I wanted to bring this into your attention is that although we're talking about material objects, and my research is mostly about visual and material play, during the past years, I've been involved in a project researching digital play other than game play or the playing of digital games. So I will give you a couple of examples of that when we advance in the presentation. But I also wanted to talk a little bit about this, that toys can be used in activism. And Hanne mentioned the Playing Politics book. We are contributing to a few of us in the room right now. And toys, as said, can be used as part of activism. And toys are a powerful media in that sense. And they also, I believe, contribute to a brighter future. And this is, of course, a bold statement to make, but I really think that these are strong objects. And a little bit more about my background. So a little bit more than 10 years ago, I received my doctorate from the Aalto University. I wrote a thesis on adult toy play. Some might say a bold move to make during that time when adult toy play was not as legitimized, perhaps, as it is today, with many kinds of news articles that have recently come that discuss, for instance, the kidults, and we're going to talk about kidults in a while. But people often ask me how I got into this whole area of toy and play research, and the fact is that my grandfather started a board game company in Finland in the late 60s. And then I became a board game designer, a self-learned one in the company. And I worked there, and I also studied, and I did one master's project in game design, and that is how I also got involved with the Tampere game folks. And since those times, and we are talking about the early 2000s or so. So I have collaborated with a lot of great people from Tampere University and the Game Lab here in many ways. But anyhow, I did this doctorate then on toys because I wanted to do something else than play research on games. But I always say to people that I flirt with game research, and I know a little bit about it, but not as much as you do in the room here today. So I'm mainly the toy person, and that of course gives me a lot of liberty and excuses to play with toys also at adult age. But these are some of the organizations I worked with and collaborated with in the past. And with this, I want to illustrate to you kind of things that I have researched in the past. So on the plaything side, you can see a lot of familiar, perhaps, character toys to you, both dolls, action figures, and soft toys. And recently also robotics and such. And this would be the kinds of play patterns or types of play that I've done research on from an early from the early days of my research. I've done a significant body of research on photo play, that is toy photography or videography, and storytelling in this area. But I also looked at games, as said, and then done research on playful spaces. I was the main person who was responsible of setting up the Pori Laboratory of Play Space at the University Consortium of Pori. We have some similarities there with the OASIS space. Sadly, we built up the lab just before the pandemic, so it hasn't really gotten into the stage that OASIS has. It's not the social space like you have here. But anyhow, it was a very nice project to be involved with. And then you can see some of the academic areas that I have defined here that play a part in my research, game research being one of the strongest ones, but I also have been a practicing artist, and play research in itself is of course a huge area if we talk about open-ended play or play in education, but like the aforementioned digital culture, fan studies, interaction design, early education, media studies, and so on. So this would be all the kinds of different perspectives on toy and play research, and also game research my studies have taken in the past. Here are some pictures from the Pori Laboratory of Play, and with Annika Blomberg we did a chapter on materializing playfulness, and I'm really proud about this because we also received an award for it. So what we looked at were the affordances of the space, and again the elements of play and the elements of the play space, and how those could be matched in terms of materializing playfulness. So this is just to show you how I'm also very interested in how play emerges in space. And then I've looked at what I call the pseudo museums. These would be selfie museums, and I did research on this. So the spatial, the three-dimensional, the toyish in terms of interior decoration also interests me a lot. And I also collaborated with museums here in Finland, and also then have given courses on this subject. But what is the value of toys? Well, everything starts with wow. In my doctoral research, I had this subtitle, From Wow to Flow to Glow. And I also learned later on that there is such a thing called double wow. And well, everything starts with the enthrallment, the fascination you have with some kind of objects of desire that toys are for most people who like toys or toyish objects. So wow makes you want to have the thing, hold it in your hands, do stuff with it, cherish it, and display it, and build a history with it, and everything starts there. That's the first value, I would say. Then, of course, because there really is so little literature on toy design literature at the moment is growing, thankfully. But when I started, I could see that there was not much out there. And also I visited, when I did the doctorate, some of the schools in the world that have these toy design programs, and I understood that they really don't have any books that they would have written, their teachers would have written themselves. So I thought that, hey, there is certainly a gap here that should be addressed. So I started to write papers about this. And these are pretty basic things that I show you here. But since there was not much, I also had the freedom to do so. So first of all, of course, when you look at toys, they should be playable. That is kind of given. But in terms of the play patterns, there's of course literature on that. What kind of play patterns toys invite, what they provoke in the players, so to speak. They might afford sensory experiences, fantasy play, construction, or challenge play. This is one way of categorizing play. Then again, according to these universal guidelines, there have been also some argumentation on that, what is needed, according, for instance, for the researchers at the Let's Play project. They wrote that a toy should be appealing, be clear about it, how it can be used, be adjustable for a range of uses, and finally support the child's development. But here's the problem, because usually these kind of guidelines only consider the child as a player of the toys. So what I did in this paper, I looked at designer toys, sub-branch of quite recent toys that have their beginning in underground culture, in comics and urban arts, and I wrote about those kind of affordances that are important for adults too. But then thinking about how you would review toys for a piece that you write, I thought that these kind of frameworks are quite handy because they give you some kind of indication about what you should be looking at when giving these values for the toy and analyzing them. So actually also here at Tampere University, I was part of the hybrid social play project. And within that project, together with Janne Paavilainen, we organized a workshop where the participants also were able to share about some information about their toy experiences or their perceptions of how toys can be perceived. And based on that, I developed this physical, functional, fictive, and affective framework for toys. And what that refers to, I've combined that here with the toy design universals. So I guess many of these, of course, go with games as well. And if we talk about analog games, you also consider the physical dimension clearly. But out of the other ones, you can certainly apply them to digital games as well. But if we go a little bit closer into these, so multi-sensoriality is important. Toys are usually three-dimensional objects that can be displayed in space. They can be displayed as part of collections or by themselves, and there are different kinds of aesthetics. This would be a designer toy. This is clearly not aimed for kids. The bunny with the tobacco in its mouth having a smoke, no. So, fictional, of course, there's a narrative element or a backstory, as I wrote about it in my thesis, which is communicated through its identity. And many plush toys, for instance, come with a little tag that tells the backstory of the toys, but they can be part of large fictional worlds, story worlds, including several toy friends and accessories. And this brings us, of course, to a topic or a term that you might be very familiar with, transmedia. So that has to do with the fictional aspect of the toys. Then there's the functional aspect, and that's very important for the toys wowness, because once you understood that you can do anything with a toy, you start to fiddle with it and you start to try out things, and that actually takes you to the flow stage. Here is an example of the Blight doll, and this is advertising material for Blight. That was a doll that originates in the 70s, in the early 70s, and it was marketed with a comic where they explained the mechanics of this doll. And I happen to remember that Anna-Kaisa, who was working here before, had her Blight here in the university, in her space actually. So has anyone seen a Blight doll? Do you know how it works? Or she works? Okay, you guys know. But based on this comics, would the other ones in the room understand its mechanics? Because sometimes you need to demonstrate and try out in order to see how it works or how she works. So want to give a little explanation, maybe?
Yeah, probably. So this kind of doll, it has a string in the back of the head, and when you pull the string, her eyes change color and direction. So you can have the doll facing to the left or to the right, and different eye colors.
Well done. Thank you for the explanation. But it's like this was in the early 70s, and the doll's aesthetic was considered quite creepy for many and ahead of its time, because people have problems with dolls sometimes, and that is another thing that we can talk about. It's called pediophobia, the fear of dolls. Thank you, horror films. You have made your point. But anyhow, Blight is a special doll, and I also have the Blight doll on the cover image of my thesis. But anyhow, the functional bit of toys is very, very important. And of course, you can talk about mechanics in games. So this is how they go in these both worlds. For me, an eye-opening moment playing with my Blight doll was when I really, really was encouraged to try to bend its knees, because for a long time I had photographed the doll sitting with its legs like in like in the front, not bent at all. I didn't know that they bend. I tried, but not tried hard enough. And then someone said to me, you have to try harder. I literally like bend the feet backwards. And then I did it, and that gave me so much more in terms of photo play, because now I could pose the toy in so many different ways, sitting in different places and stuff like that. But mechanics is, of course, is essential when you discover that in a toy, how it works, how can you bend it, and there are other examples of interesting mechanics. And for instance, unboxing, you might be very familiar with that, has become an interesting topic in the past years. But then there's the affective side of things as well, and this has a lot to do with the toy's capacity to act as activists, or as part of our toy activism. But they are also, as I've written in the recent past, objects of resilience for us. So what the pandemic showed us is that people used the most known toy character in the world, that is the teddy bear, in many ways, and also attached some gamified goals to what is known as the Teddy Challenge. Many of you might know that people put teddy bears in the windows, and I did extensive research on this. And this is actually from a book from Bloomsbury, where Mikko Meriläinen, Jaakko Stenros, and myself used this framework, how to analyze these miniatures, the use of these miniature characters as part of role-playing games. And I thought that, hey, this is really nice that we can use this to analyze game experiences when they come as material material and visual experiences, the tangible experiences, collected experiences, DIY experiences. So we found it useful to use this framework in that context as well. And I've done most of my work with adults. So adults who use in one way or another toys in their activities. And there's one exception to that, and that is the chapter I wrote for the childhoods in leisure and cross-cultural and interdisciplinary dialogues, because I wrote that on hobby horses. And hobby horse play in Finland among Finnish young females. So that is my only like teenage play kind of study. But any of you are into hobby horses or know their cultures here in Finland?
They were designed in a LARP actually here in Finland as part of a LARP.
Nice, nice.
So they was their horses.
Right, because
it was
they
a kind
are.
of satirical LARP.
Yeah, yeah. They have so many different dimensions to it, and so has the activity. So I wanted to look at media articles, YouTube videos, and what these young females are telling about their uses, and not many of them want to address their activities as play, of course. And this has been, of course, a huge question to sort of analyze things from the framework and the angle of play when the players are not aware or do not want to call their activities play. Then that's another thing. But with the pandemic book, they also put the teddy bear on the cover, and with the masks and human connections, there was this chapter on toys as avatars, as also as our extensions, and these kind of self-supported activists in a way. And there's an interesting history to the toy activism. Because, for instance, teddy bears have been used for such a long time for people who grieve, and I also found out in a great article that teddy bears were part of the AIDS activism, and that was something really touching, that they became symbols for this whole era, and the sort of the carriers for these very important messages. So therefore, I think they are very much objects of resilience. They still are, for many reasons, for both kids and adults. So mechanisms in toys and play gets us into the flow state. And this is a much used term, of course. And I'm here using it only as like a subtitle and an excuse to talk a little bit about play. And I have used other gurus in play to reference here, not just Brian Sutton Smith, but people who have come after him. And here we are at Brian Sutton Smith. This was fast. So if you go back to Thomas Henricks, who I also reference a lot in my work, and who actually wrote the foreword for Brian Sutton Smith's last book that came from him, Play for Life, Play Theory and Play as Emotional Survival, he writes that we play because we want to know more about what we do not know yet about. So that's one way of dealing with play. Play has a wealth of definitions, as we all know. I tend to also think that play with toys is about self-actualization, it's about self-expression, it's about our personalities, our identities, and this has to do with how we use toys as part of our activities as adult age. Like I mentioned, avatars is a known concept from games. In toys, I consider toys very much avatars for ourselves. Sometimes they can show aspects of ourselves that we're not even aware of so well. So they are important in that sense too. They are our extensions in many ways. And imagination is a key concept. And I tend to disagree with Stuart Brown a bit, who, by the way, I met at US Play Coalition conference in the States a couple of years back. He was giving a keynote talk there, and nobody asked anything when he gave the floor the chance to ask something. So of course I needed to ask that. What does he think about adults who use toys as part of their like adult lives? And he answered then very nicely that there is certainly much more well off than adults who don't play with toys at adult age. Something like this. I have it written down somewhere, but anyhow, if we look at his statement that play is a state of mind rather than an activity, we have a playfulness researcher in the room, so I should be a little bit cautious about what I say about playfulness. But anyhow, I think that playfulness is a state of mind and play is activity. So this is how I see it in my own work. Playfulness is a mindset, and it's a pre-condition, and it's a preconception, sort of. It's a sort of what is there before you start playing. It's something that is in your mind, and play is activity with the world, something you engage with your whole body. Well, play as an activity, this is one definition that has been given by Peter Gray. So he says that play is voluntary and self-directed, intrinsically motivated, rule-bound, imaginative, regulated by an active, alert, but non-stressed mindset. And everybody in the room, of course, you as game scholars know this. Recently, I've done a lot. I've started to do a lot more with playful learning with adults in the higher education context, with people who have no connection to play whatsoever in their lives in terms of their education. So they're not early education students, or they are not necessarily toy enthusiasts or anything. They often are not. They don't have any connection to play apart from playing games, or that's at least what they say. So I've discovered that there has been some things about what separates play from creativity, and I find this quote from Pat Power quite good, and I have used it in my own work as well, that what separates creativity and play is that play creates possibilities and creativity produces ideas and artifacts. So I think that's a practical way of looking at things. But I have mentioned this already, but what do you think? What precedes creativity? What is your thought on this? What is the one thing that we need in order to be creative in play? Please just shout out. Yeah. That's one part of the truth, yes, but of course. But what precedes divergent thinking, do you think? Yeah. Come on.
Whoa.
Well, great answers, but what is the thing that usually, like, we need that to think of anything, to speculate?
Imagination.
All righty. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Okay. I think that is what is the cornerstone of creativity. We need to have imagination, but of course you could continue this quest and ask, what does it take to be imaginative, and what would your answer be to that? Any thoughts on that? What do you need to feed the imagination?
Capacity to generate an image in your mind.
Oh my gosh, that is such a psychological textbook explanation to it, but like in more like childish terms, perhaps.
A desire to do it.
Play.
Inspiration.
True, but like something more concrete.
Experience?
True, but what could that experience stem from?
Like exploration, like random manipulation of things?
Lovely answers, but the thing that we are, as kids, we are hopefully all like surrounded by somehow, or given that kind of experiences. True, yes, great answers again. Okay, I don't have that written down, but I would say storytelling. So stories feed our imagination, and they can come, of course, as toys, as games, whatever. But stories, they are sticky. They stay there. They feed the imagination, at least to how I think about that. Anyhow, here's some historical arguments about how imagination has grown to be a concept. And oh, I'm surprised. Oh, there he is. Can you see? I was first that there's no Sutton Smith here, but yeah, he wrote extensively, and I've been to the strong Brian Sutton Smith archives of play 4 times now. Done research there. I was their research fellow in 2017, and oh my gosh, delving in that archives is something else. So go there if you have the possibility. Anyhow, to advance, well, Gordon Berghardt is of course someone to reference as well, and he has written about these things as well, and also in terms of animals. And now Jaakko Stenros is not in the room, but he would have more to say about ethology. Is that so? Yes.
I think you're ending here at 5. So
Yes.
So how much time you want for questions? That depends on how long you will
Thank
go
you.
on.
Thank you. I have no idea how many slides I still have here, but I can pace it up a little bit more. I usually, when the room is so casual in terms of its mindset and atmosphere, I tend to speak more slowly. But I can speed up definitely so we get to the examples of the values in association with toys. And I love to speak about creativity, so we could continue endlessly with that topic. But to show you that not all quotes are from Brian Sutton Smith, I'll just scroll onwards. And humor is, of course, a large part of our playful experiences as well. Okay, let's go to recent literature. Anyone has read here the book from Rutger Bregman? Yes? Some hands. So he talks about kids and then boredom as the most significant source of creativity. Of course, philosophers and doctors and intelligent people have talked about play for a long time. Even Carl Jung has his ideas about it. And even game scholars of recent years have talked about adults playing. And this is something I wanted to address in this presentation as well. The qualities that playful adults have been said to have, because that is my passion, to talk about play as a lifelong and life-wide phenomenon. And this is the picture of Blight on the cover of my doctoral thesis. And here it has this very staring look and pink eyes. I can certainly relate to those people in the room who have pediophobia with this kind of doll, but believe me, there are friendlier images of her when she has, for instance, blue, the side eyes like the original Barbie had, but she can be made to look this kind of a staring, glaring object as well. Anyhow, what I tried to prove in this project was that adults are playing with toys as well. And quite early on, there has been discussions about kidults, and this was also a mega trend at the toy fair in Nuremberg in 2019, just before the pandemic. They announced this as a mega trend that kidults or adult users of toys are an existing phenomenon. And here you can see more information about that. But I could, of course, say I knew it. I knew it. I've written about it, and I've written about it later on than like in this book. And there I talked about toy play in pleasure, work, and leisure. So we can see signs of that toys are part of the working life nowadays more and more. But here's some ideas on what kidultism means, and we have come to an age where we can definitely say that collectors are not anymore a pimple on the elephant's ass. So yes, Hasbro, this is where we are at now. And definitely a lot of market opportunities. And then I wanted to mention, since we were originally here, or I was invited to talk with the game journalism students, I wanted to also show some articles I've been interviewed for. So can you imagine a little article I wrote on this pediophobia, a Finnish online journal? That article, or the insights gained for that study, eventually ended up in Huffington Post. So I was interviewed for this like mega media for the article I had written like in 2018. So I was one of the experts they interviewed. And recently, someone had read my work on kidults as well, so I was interviewed for the La Repubblica. So now I also know how they call a toy researcher in Italian. Okay, so play in contemporary society. It has been celebrated more and more because it has several benefits, one of them being well-being, social competence, creative expression, gender identification, and we all know Huizinga, of course. Double wow, what is that? That is what you discover in play of toys that you didn't know about at all when you first had that wow experience. It's something that is revealed in play. So hidden affordance, or an Easter egg in toys, you would say. So we got to the stage where I can say that play is eternal disruption. Disruption was already mentioned here. And yes, Brian, I love this picture of you. And toys as culture, anyone who thinks of themselves as a respectable toy researcher should, of course, have read this book. And if we return to toys, I have this lovely quote that a toy is seen both as a bauble and an intellectual machine. What are baubles? Do you know? And those who are very well aware of English language should not answer, or then you should give a hint to the other ones. But do you all know what a bauble is? Some nods.
But it's treasured a bit, right? Like,
you know better than I, but for me this communicates. Do you know this kind of Christmas ornament, like a shiny object that you hang in the Christmas tree? That for me is a bauble. But yeah, like you said, something a little bit interesting, but it's also an intellectual machine. So we've come to the point where it's justifiable to say that toys are tools for creativity. How would you play with this? Good answer. Hey, some examples of things that come to your mind. How would you play with this?
With water?
You can do all of these things.
Helmet.
Yeah? Yeah. Okay, great. Great answers. So, yeah, kids, of course, know how to play with this. So they don't know what it is. And heck, we don't know as adults either. But I have also these miniature versions, and I think they fit perfectly the Blight dolls as a helmet. So my final point in this presentation is that play develops alongside technology. And these were thoughts that were originated very early on, that modern or mechanical or plastic toys suppress the child's imaginative powers. That is bullshit, of course, as we know. The Frankenstein paradox is a fitting term for this idea that children's imaginations are always being threatened by the emergence of new machines, toys, televisions, video games, and so on. Again, thank you, Brian. Okay, so we have used these new kind of internet-connected toys in the research I conducted with me and my colleagues. But then, of course, the digital cameras, the mobile phones play a huge part in photo play, the photography of toys. And yes, play leads us to explore and create. And yet another thing that Brian has said, and I believe this too, that we learn by all times to play more complexly. And here are some examples of research I've done. Tuomas Harvianen is in the room today. I'm very proud we made it to the American Journal of Play with this article, so yay! Doll dramas and toy tourism or toyrism published, yes. Pandemic toy play, how teddy bears became so important for us in the first phases of lockdown. And that led to coining toy activism, but it's, of course, a lot of other phenomena that contributed to that as well. But here we can see that it's a combination of many things, a hybrid play phenomenon, also in terms of combining digital play with physical toys. And yeah, I feel for you, I really do. And I'm really happy that also in Finland, we have these instances of toy activism that pay respect to the situation. And also what I like to believe is that toy activism is something that signals playful resilience and surviving by doing and doing by playing. Often we adults don't know how to play, or so we say. We at least need to draw a face to cardboard boxes in order to understand them as toys. So we don't necessarily have the capacity to play as children do. But someone mentioned constraints here. So I love this quote from Ian Bogost, who has said that we need constraints to understand play and how things can be used in play. Lastly, my own research tool, the comic cubes. I've used this in several different ways with kids and adults and seniors, and we've designed games and we've designed tools, and I think that based on what I've understood of cardboard cubes is that forget about cryophobia, forget about pediophobia as well, and this is a nice quote that doesn't come from Brian Sutton-Smith. And yes, about creativity that flourishes in chaos. And now that I have been researching digital play and robots and such, I hope that as we have these robots that move, how do you say, the lawn, move the grass, move the lawn, what is the expression? All right, thank you. So we will hopefully have also robots cleaning the mess we make in play soon. So glow after glow, and we will end soon. Play is not regression, it is progression. Play is definitely not useless, it's surviving by doing, and playing is future friendly. And it's our task to enable this future-friendly universe with toys, and of course future is fiction, so that fiction is ours to write. And finally, the values of toys. Well, they need to be playable, of course. They can have physical, functional, fictional, and affective dimensions, and those dimensions together generate play value. And then in my digital play project, I have looked at the what I call second level toys, playable technologies, digital cameras, robotics, smartphones, social media, social robots, for instance, robotic pets. And then my last area of inquiry has been speculative toy fiction. So you will learn about that perhaps in my next presentation here. Thank you so much, and stay playful, and that's me.
Hey, Kati. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to listen more, but we cannot.
Do you want the other brands at the Smithco?
Yeah, it's great. I think we can take a couple of questions. If you're like, you are sitting there and there's something you really want to ask, you can do it now. Yeah.
So a lot of your examples and things like that deal with deeply child aesthetic toys, right? That on some level are clearly recognizable as for children. How does your work integrate with objects that are played with that do not have a childlike aesthetic on any level, like modern technology, people who like to play with tech, men who like to play with cars, this kind of very adult, entrenched cultural objects of play behavior?
Very good question. I tackled this question in the beginning of my doctoral thesis by talking about toyification and the idea that many objects in today's world are metaphorically referred to as toys, like vehicles you mentioned. I have not looked at car culture and toyish uses of cars, for instance, but I have written something about the kitchen appliances being given very toyified looks, and you mentioned objects that do not have this aesthetic at all, but are used as toys. And I don't really have any other examples of that kind of research apart from now in the recent bits of my studies dealing with digital cameras and smartphones and these second level toys that actually are nowadays referred to much more as actual toys. And I find this quite a fascinating transition of the idea of toys being thought of as intellectual machines, as we saw in Brian's code. But I don't really know if this answered your question. My interest has always been in the mass-marketed toys that are toys as we traditionally understand them, and especially in regards to character toys, like I mentioned, toys with a face. But it's interesting also to think about cars and the aesthetic and design of these kind of items that could be considered as toys, because they also, for many, have this ideologic features, meaning that we see faces in cars and stuff. So I believe that people who have tendencies to prefer this kind of aesthetics see possibilities to play everywhere, and these faces everywhere, and that of course has then something, it functions as a prompt for your imagination to start to think about things. I hope that at least partly this answered your question, but no, mostly.
So very much fitting into your sort of physical category,
Yeah.
but can you say a bit about, I mean,
Yeah.
there's been a super resurgence of them at the moment, and if you have thoughts on that.
I'm really glad you asked. I've looked at that phenomenon in parallel to this digital play in terms of our yearning and desire to fiddle with something. And there's actually in toy literature there's this term called the fiddle factor. So toys with interesting capacities for your fiddling, that would be these fidget spinners or puppet toys. Yes. So they have something to do with our integral need to handle things with our hands most of all. But there's also another explanation to this. Some of you might recognize this reason for the trend of them becoming popular in today's world. YouTube videos, TikToks, this. So I didn't talk about this here, but we can clearly see how social media phenomena are affecting today's toy design as well. So there might be some viral phenomena, like the first example of this were the emoji toys, toys based on emojis, like plush toys based on popular emojis. But then the second step was very fast, how these social media phenomena were translated into physical toys, like these puppet toys, all kinds of toys, slime toys, what you can squeeze and what is like, yikes. Yeah, but people love this. I cannot bear to watch the TV show where the doctor squeezes these pimples, like, yeah, anyhow, you know what I'm talking about. So I could see, like, at New York Toy Fair, toys that were created because of the desire of people to squeeze like slime out of holes. Disgusting. But I can understand on a very like primitive level that gives gratification to us. So this kind of fidgety, fiddly things, to some people who have these symptoms of ADHD, exactly, that's what I mean, are then given this object so that they can calm down. It's like stress toys, the ones you squeeze like in your hands and stuff. So I believe, and this is my final say because Hanna is eager to go elsewhere, is that what is the popularity and what is the reason that we still have, what is the ultimate value of toys in a digitalizing age and in a post-digital age even, is that we are physical entities ourselves. So should part of our toys be, and that's where I leave it. Okay. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we meet, I'd say we need 5-10 minutes